Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video. Check out my new tool, guys. This is my very first laser cutting machine, and if you can't tell, I am really excited about this one. So a little while back, xTool reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to try out one of the machines, to which I obviously said yes. Now for disclosure, xTool is not sponsoring this video. There was no money that exchanged hands. They did, however, send me this machine for free. So what I got here is the xTool D1 Pro with a 20-watt laser, which is strong enough to cut through 10mm plywood and 8mm acrylic in a single pass. And apparently it can even engrave in metal, which I cannot wait to try out. But for today, we're gonna use this guy to organize my filing cabinet, because right now, those top two drawers are completely cluttered with pens and markers. I've got dongles, hard drives, paper clips, and just a bunch of random stuff. Now, I don't need anything fancy or super custom. I just want everything to have their own spot and just make it easy for me to find what I'm looking for. So if you've been following my stuff for a while, you know that I usually design everything in Shaper 3D or Fusion 360, but there's actually a free way to do this that doesn't require any CAD knowledge, and it is super easy to do. Let me show you guys. So let's open up our browser, and we are gonna go to a website called makercase.com. So here you can see that we've got a bunch of different boxes that we can design. And the ones most relevant to us is probably the simple box and this box with dividers. Now, the problem with the box with dividers is we can't really change the dimension of each individual container. So even if we change the number of rows or columns, you can see that each container is the same size. So I think it's better for us to just go and use the simple box instead. And I want to change my units to millimeters because that's what I'm used to using. And obviously we got a few different size boxes we got to make for this project, but let's start with making ones for storing my markers and pens because I got a lot of them. So if we take a measurement here, most of these are about 140, 150 millimeters long. And if I lay 6 of these next to each other with all these clips facing up like this, which is probably how I want to store these in the drawers, the total width is about 70 millimeters. So we're going to set the width to 80 millimeters. And then the depth to 170 millimeters. And you get to see how this box size changes as we change these values, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, so since the inside of my drawer box is, I think it was about 75 millimeters, we're gonna set this height to 50 millimeters. That way we still get to see about 1/3 of the inside of the drawer box, which I think that's gonna look pretty good. These dimensions, we're gonna set these as the outside of the box. And for material thickness, we're gonna use this piece of plywood for this project, which measures almost exactly 3 millimeters. So let's keep the material thickness at 3 millimeters, and we're gonna change this to an open box because we don't need the lid. So right now, these parts are just joined together with butt joints. But we're gonna take advantage of the sharp corners that a laser can cut, and we're gonna change this to finger joints. I'm not really a big fan of these fat fingers. It just looks really weird to me. So let's reduce the size. Also, these smaller fingers, they just look stronger to me, even though we're gonna be using glue anyway, so it probably doesn't really matter, but yeah, this just looks a lot better to me. Now let's click on download box plans, and here's an image of what each individual parts are gonna look like. And let's disable the panel labels since we're not gonna be engraving those onto our parts. Let's click on download SVG, and since we'll be making a few different size boxes, I'm just gonna label this by the size of the box. That way we don't get confused later on. And click on save. Now just click on cancel and we go back to the screen and we can start making our other boxes. So we're gonna make some longer ones to fit the longer markers that I have, and we'll have wider boxes for things like dongles, hard drives, and cables. And of course, we're gonna need some smaller boxes for things like paper clips, bookmark tabs, and I don't know, whatever smaller things I have. And just as before, we're gonna save and label each one of these based on their sizes so we don't get them mixed up. All right, so once we have all of our files saved, let's go ahead and launch the xTool Creative Space app, which is basically xTool's design tool that also controls their machines. There's other programs like Lightburn, which is more powerful and it can control machines other than xTool's, but this one's free, so I am sticking with this one. All right, let's go ahead and load in our files, and we can simply do this by dragging our file directly into this program. So let's find that first box, the 170 by 80 by 50, and drag it in. Okay, so right off the bat, we have a problem. This piece of plywood that we're going to be using to cut our material from is 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters. So this piece here is laying outside of our material. But the good news is we're not stuck with this layout. So click outside to deselect everything, and we can actually select each of these pieces individually. So select this piece, and we're going to move it below the other parts. And let's rotate that 90 degrees. Let's move it back up. And let's select everything and move it all up here to this top left corner. But now we have a lot of empty space left and we don't want to waste any materials. So let's drag in one of our smaller boxes. This 70 by 70 by 50. And it should nest in here pretty nicely. Yep, it's still within this 300 millimeter boundary. The thing is, we still have a lot of material left over. So let's see if we can drag in another one of these small 70 by 70 boxes. Yeah, I feel like we can definitely do it, but it's probably going to take a little time to get all the pieces maneuvered in place. Now, keep in mind that these are not the only boxes we're making, so if we had to do this for everything, it's probably going to take us all day. So instead of wasting our time and doing this manually, we're going to use a free tool called Deep Nest to help us with this. And we can download it for free from deepnest.io. So once the program's downloaded and installed, let's go ahead and launch it. And let me drag it around to fill up the screen. All right, let's click on Import. And we are going to import the 170, 80, 50 box first. Unfortunately, this program doesn't allow me to import more than one file at a time, so we have to repeat that to import our smaller box. All right, once both of these are in here, now we got to tell the program how big our workpiece is. So come down to the plus sign and type in 300 by 300 and click on Add. Oh, and if you don't want to work in millimeters, just come over here to this little gear icon, and here you can change it to inches. I think another one of these settings I changed was the space between parts. I believe the default was 0, which is probably fine for laser, but I set it as 1, just in case. Okay, let's go back to this, and we're going to try to nest one of these big ones and then 2 of these smaller boxes. So come over to the quantity box next to the smaller parts, and we're going to set these to 2. So we have to type these in manually because when I try to click on these arrows, it skips a number. So it goes from 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. So you have to set these manually. And finally, we're going to put a check mark in this little box to indicate that this is the material we'll be cutting from. And once that's all done, click on Select All, and we're going to click on Start Nest and see what we get. All right, so now the program is going to run through this iterative process of rotating each individual piece and try to put as many parts as possible onto our sheet, and also give us a bunch of different options. So it looks like right now it's able to place 13 of the 15 pieces on here. Oh, 14 now. So yeah, like I said, it's just going to keep running and try to squeeze in more and more pieces. I'm not sure if the program's ever just going to stop and say, hey, that's it. I've run through all the possibilities and there is no more. All right, anyway, let's let it run, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get all 50 on here. There we go. I knew we could do it. I knew we could do it. Good job, computer. Yeah, we got all 15 pieces nested, but as you can see, the program is still running. So I'm guessing that the program is just never going to stop running on its own. So let's click on Stop Nest, and then click on Export and go to SVG file. And let's create a new folder called For Cutting. And let's save this as pencil box with 2 small boxes. One thing about this program is we need to make sure to add the extension at the end. So make sure to type .svg or else it's just going to save it without an extension. All right, save this, and we're going to go back to our xTool creative space. Let's select what we had in there before. We're going to delete it. Let's drag in our new file. All right, so while everything's selected, let's zoom in here, and we're just going to drag it around a little bit so that everything's not crowded in one corner. All right, and now we are ready to start cutting. The first thing we're gonna do is make sure our machine's connected to our computer. And a feature I really like is the fact that we can do this through Wi-Fi. And I'm not saying that other machines can't do this, so please don't come after me, guys. I just really appreciate the fact that we don't need to add another wire in the shop. But anyway, make sure the machine's turned on, and then come over here and select Connect Device. And then under Wi-Fi, pick our device from this list. Okay, so once we're connected, come under Materials and make sure to pick the 3mm basswood plywood. Oh, also, you can see that xTool has a list of pre-programmed materials in there already. So we've got plywood, acrylic, metal business cards, and stainless steel. And each one of these have the laser settings already pre-programmed in there for operations like scoring, engraving, and cutting. I think it's really great for people who are just starting out like me, and it takes all the guesswork out of it. But anyway, let's load the plywood, and then we're gonna set the focus of the laser by flipping down this little arm. We're gonna loosen up the module and slide it down until that arm touches the workpiece. And since we did such a good job at maximizing our material usage, we need to actually make sure this workpiece is within the processing area of our laser. So we're gonna have to run the framing program for this machine, which is going to move the laser module around to show us the area that's actually gonna be cutting. And then we can adjust our workpiece until it's completely inside that processing area, and once everything looks good, we can put on our glasses so that we don't damage our eyes and start cutting. 13 minutes later, we've got all the pieces for our 3 boxes. And one of the advantages of having a laser cutter is that a CNC could never get these sharp, crisp inside corners. And if I did this correctly, these parts should go together perfectly. One tip is to always use an air assist when laser cutting, which is basically just this little air pump that blows air across the surface of our workpiece while it's being cut. And it helps to lower the surface temperature, and it blows away the smoke and debris, which is why the surfaces on these pieces all came out so clean. And it also leaves a lot less burns along these edges. And I haven't done anything to these edges, but there aren't any of that sticky black residue that's coming off of the part. But anyway, I digress. Let's get the rest of the boxes cut, and we'll glue them up and see how things fit. Did you guys see how perfectly everything fit in there? Those last two, they just slid right in there. That was satisfying. And I just realized that when I was talking about the sizing of these boxes earlier in the video, I completely forgot to mention we need to know the size of the drawer box as well, which I'm sure you guys already know, but I had to do a little bit of math to make sure that everything fit perfectly. And I know you're like, oh, math. Well, hey, let's be honest, math is super important when it comes to woodworking. And, you know, if you're someone who wants to get better at it, be sure to check out our sponsor for this video, Brilliant. Brilliant is a learning platform that takes an active approach to teaching math, science, and computer science. And through their courses on topics like logic, probability, calculus, gravitational physics, solar energy, and computer science topics like algorithms and machine learning, you're going to be immediately thrown into challenging problems that not only boost your interest interest in those subjects, but also show you how to apply those concepts. This style of teaching means you won't have to spend a ton of time in lectures or on introductory material. You'll be thrown right into the heart of the subject. And as a result of that, you'll be able to learn much more effectively. So if you want to learn more about math, science, or computer science, and if you want to start learning for free today and support my channel, head over to brilliant.org/BevelishCreations or by clicking on the link in the descriptions to get your first 30 days for free. And if you're one of the first 200 people to sign up with that link, you'll be able to get 20% off your annual subscription. A huge thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video and supporting my channel. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys liked it. And if you did, be sure to leave one of these down below. It would totally make my day. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, because I don't know what's the worst that could happen.